Hey Reddit, when did your "something's not right here" gut feeling ever save you? My mom dropped my 3-year-old brother off at daycare before she had to work in the morning. When she got to work, she had this terrible feeling something was wrong with Hi Monsieur. She ended up leaving work and drove to the daycare. She found the daycare lady inside sleeping while the daycare kids, including my brother, were running around the pool. My brother never went back to that daycare again. WTF kind of daycare would even have a pool? Those things murder the shit out of little kids. In Canada, 50% of toddler drownings are in backyard pools. Kids drown so much faster than you think they could. It takes about 30 seconds. A phone call, a momentary distraction, a knock at the door, going to the bathroom, monsieur. That is about how long it takes. Toddlers are all suicidal. Parenting is 10% nurturing and 123% stopping them from killing themselves. I had a gut feeling I should pull my wallet and phone out of my purse. Not even 20 seconds later, I get mugged. The man dragged me across the sidewalk and stole my purse, but all he ended up getting was a juice box in my birth control. What flavor was the juice box? And what flavor birth control? Someday birth control will come off prescription, and they'll need those cute little catchy names like the patent medicines have. Someday birth control pills will have names like Pregnant. Doctors prefer Embryo. Here's one for the ladies. Naria Carey. Something lofty and poetic. Nay Family Way. Something earthy and crude. Mom Bomb. Something for the youngsters. Junior Miss. Here's a real man's product. Inconceivable. Mommy Knot. Fetus Fail. Kitty Kill. Papa Stopper. Womb Broom. Humpty Dumpty. I wouldn't be surprised if they came up with a birth control pill that doesn't work all the time. They'd call it Baby Maybe. George Carlin. Fetus Deletus flavor. Forgot one. About 10 years ago, working security at a site about 50 miles from home, got off shift at midnight, and didn't bother to change out of uniform because I was only going to stop for gas. 2 stations in the town I was working in were open after midnight, but it slipped my mind as I drove past the first one. Pulled into the other. Same brand, same gas price, same sort of dump entirely, and just didn't like something about it. Nobody else around but a clerk that I could see. But I decided to go back to the other one. Topped off and headed back out of town. I get close to that station again. 3 city cop cars, 2 deputies and a state trooper are outside blocking the road with guns drawn. Turns out a city cop walked in on a robbery. Dude put a bullet in his vest, and the store owner knocked the robber out cold with a bat before the cop could recover enough to get his gun out. That would have been me, in a uniform with a nice shiny badge, but no body armor. Well, in all earnestness, you actually dodged a bullet on that one. I went to hospital with shortness of breath and my heart racing. They did a chest x-ray, blood test for blood clots, ECG, and a few other tests, but all came back normal. After observing me overnight, everything still looked good. Oxygen saturation was perfect. My heart rate was still a bit elevated but nothing too crazy. And it seemed that it was likely leftover symptoms from a bad virus that I'd had a week or so earlier. The ear doctor asks me how I would feel if they sent me home and I just had a bad feeling about it. I told him as such, and that I had no real basis for it except that I just felt off about it. He said, fair enough. Let's try one more test, and if that comes back negative, then we'll send you up to general medicine and see if they can track something down. That test was a VQ scan that found, despite all other tests showing no results for blood clots, I actually had a whole bunch of them in both lungs. I ended up with a diagnosis of unprovoked bilateral pulmonary embolisms, and am on blood thinners for life. Super grateful both for the bad feeling and the ear doctor who was willing to listen to it. EMT here. I was taught if a patient tells you they think something is wrong, or they think they are going to Die. You need to listen to the monsieur. Same for nurses. There is a legit nursing diagnosis called sense of impending doom that is in reference to this feeling. Someone can't explain what it is wrong and there's nothing obvious, but we need to take it seriously. The body somehow feels something wrong when the brain can't find the words. I've found this to be very common with pulmonary emboli, heart attacks, and strokes. The body is so weird. I smelled burning plastic early in the morning at my family cottage and almost went back to sleep. I was around 15, but got up to investigate. A socket on the outside of the building had caught fire and flames were shooting up the wall. The rest of my family was still sleeping and there wasn't enough smoke for the alarms to go off. I ran and got the fire extinguisher, got my dad up, and put it in his hands and pointed him towards the fire. Stopped it and called the fire department. It's for stories like this why I always get up when I smell something burning. I get really stressed out about it. 2 summers ago I woke up to the smell of fire and found out that a neighbor was burning leaves in his backyard and it had gone out of control. So scary. Edit. To clarify, since some people are getting edgy and go like WTF, who doesn't worry when they smell of smoke? WTF. I live in a rural town, in a neighborhood close to the country, so there's a lot of burning leaves and having barbecues. You have to learn to recognize the different smells, leaves and kinds of wood, etc. Of course, if I smell smoke late at night, I'll call someone and investigate. But during the day, 99% probabilities it's controlled fire. My aunt told me a story about my dad, who greatly dislikes his sister and is an all-around asshole 98% of the time, calling her out of the blue one night while she was in college. She answered. He said he didn't know why, but he had this urge to call her to make sure she was okay. She told him she was fine and thanked him for calling to check on her. She never told anyone else except me, and hopefully a therapist or two. But she was holding the bottle of pills she was planning to commit suicide with right when he called her. 20-some years later, and she's very happy with her decision to live. Edit. Since this has unintentionally garnered attention, please check out ways you can help or donate in your community. There is always the National Suicide Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. Also good to know, community services boards often have a mental health department with paid employees working their crisis hotline, mental health services line during business hours, and volunteers outside of that, who can work with you to get the help you need. If you, or someone you know, has suicidal thoughts or struggles with substance abuse, please check the resources available to you. They can guide you through the process, give you information, help you call in a wellness check, direct you to other community resources such as shelters and safe homes, etc. 5 years ago I was one of the employees on the other end of the phone. Not a day goes by that I don't remember the people who were saved by reaching out, as well as the people who I failed to help. If you're struggling and think you'll be a burden to those lifeline workers, please know you'll live in their memories as a success story forever. We draw strength from your strength. Reach out, get help. This some Jedi stuff. I was going to meet up with someone from Marketplace to buy a phone and the feeling hit me, so I called the woman and a man answered, trying to play off the fact he's a man, and I passed by where we were meeting at and it was dark and I heard voices in the background on the phone call. I never stopped the car and kept going. Pretty sure I saved myself from at the very least a mugging, but learned a good lesson. Always meet in a public place. You can meet at police stations. I believe most are okay with this. Imagine how someone trying to mug people off online marketplaces would feel about this. Like if you gave them the address and they show up and it's a police station, like what would they do? Would they not show up? Would they show up and do the trade? Or would they ask to meet somewhere else because that would make it obvious? In 2004, on Boxing Day, not me but my mother family trip including all cousins and extended family on my dad's side to visit the coastal south of Sri Lanka on vacation. About 20 people in all. Well-planned trip. Last moment my mother didn't want to go. No reason at all. None of us could get her to explain why, but she refused to go. So we went inland on a different trip to see some other relatives. Around midday, the entire extended family, now on both sides, were sitting shocked in front of the television, watching the very same hotel we booked being washed away live by the tsunami. To date, she still can't explain what she felt. Thanks for the gold and silver, guys. Less than 3. Not me, but my mother, saved my grandfather's life when he had a stroke in his chair in their living room this year. We had all started to walk around the development, when my mother, after about 50 to 75 meters from the house, said, "I am going to go back and check on Dad." I went with her, and I nearly witnessed my grandfather die. He was on the chair, conscious, but unable to move or talk, just looking at my mother with bulging eyes. She called 911 once, then twice when she felt that they were running late. Ambulance came, got him on the stretcher, but it was too wide to fit out the door. We ended up tearing the door frame off to get him out, because he was conscious. He actually remembers the ride to the hospital. He told us later that he heard the driver or someone say, "There is not a chance that this guy lives." That was when I was around 5 to 6 years old. He is still alive to this day, more than a decade later. At my mother's funeral, part of his speech was about how, without my mother's actions, he would not have been able to spend time with her during her final years of life. And for that, he is eternally grateful. I am terribly sorry to hear that your grandfather and yourself had to bury your mother. But you all had a few more years together at least. It didn't save me, but saved a friend. A big group of friends and I were walking home from an event in a town we weren't used to. It was night, and hardly anyone was around, empty streets and all that. We were walking down a sidewalk that had high fences next to it. So when you turned a corner, whatever was around it was out of sight. One of the girls fell behind, distracted by her phone, I think, and I noticed. So I started drifting behind as well to become a sort of midway point between her and the group. Soon, we were nearing where we were staying, and our group rounded a corner, then started making their way into the yard where our living quarters were. I saw a car drive past us, then turn the corner down the street the girl was still on. As soon as I saw it, I suddenly got this suspicious, awful feeling, so I stopped and went back to the corner to keep an eye on the friend. The car drove past her, stopped, did a complete U-turn, and slowly started creeping up behind, alongside her. She was still on her phone, and wasn't noticing a thing. I stepped out from behind the corner, and started walking towards her. The car sped off quickly as soon as the driver saw me. It scares me that someone could have grabbed her, and none of us would have seen a thing. It would have just been one of those cliché movie moments where you turn around and realize a member of the group is missing. To compound that potential tragedy, she'd just gotten engaged a few weeks prior. I think the fact that we had worked with some safe houses in the area that discussed human trafficking probably aided in me being on high alert, and the area we were in was known for that sort of thing. She's really lucky you were so aware of your surroundings and keeping an eye out for her as well. I was 15 years old and my mom dropped me off at McDonald's to get breakfast while she went across the street to get Starbucks. It was a shopping mall in suburbia and we were on the way to pick up a new kitten a few hours away. Instead of walking the 100 yards to my mom, I sat outside waiting for her to pick me up. Teenagers, I guess. As I'm standing there, a guy in an old station wagon with 2 kids in the back starts talking to me. He asks me where I'm going and I say whatever town it was. He says he's going there too with his kids and asks if I want to come. I tell him no, that my mom is across the street, and he comes closer. My gut is saying something is off, so I see a random woman walk out of Starbucks and I point to her and say that's my mom right there. He freaked out and left really quick. I still remember those two kids in the backseat. They looked so off. I wonder to this day if they are okay. Edit 1. I did not tell my mom and I don't know why. I think I was scared she would be upset with me and not want to go get a kitten. I was barely 15 and teenagers are selfish buttheads. I finally told her a few years ago and she was super upset about it. I was so freaked out, I didn't even think to get a plate. I grew up in suburbia, but the rich kind of suburbia where this kind of stuff was never talked about. I wasn't into true crime, so I had no idea what you're supposed to do. If I had the knowledge I have now, I obviously would have handled it totally differently. This is one of the creepiest stories I've read yet. Also, at 15, why would you decide to hop in a stranger's car anyway? Presumably, if you say you're going to another town, you already have transportation. The Starbucks part reminds me of a time where I had walked down to a local Starbucks alone when I was in 8th grade. While waiting for a drink, an older man complimented my metallic red nail polish. He said he liked it, asked me where I got it, and said he was interested because he got a chip on his boat the exact same color and was looking for an easy way to patch it up. I was an outgoing kid, so I chatted with him with my hand stretched, not towards him, out to gesture towards the polish. The weird part was he grabbed my hand and wouldn't let go. I got a weird feeling, but he just kept talking and holding my hand. Once my drink was called, I quickly pulled my hand away, grabbed and mad dashed out. Mild story, but it still freaks me out to this day. Thank you for watching.